All right, we are go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 107 of You Like Toys. This is my Patreon exclusive podcast. So I'm switching things up. I'm trying new things, which I always am. If you're a member of my Patreon, you know that. Just trying new stuff to bring people into the community. And I thought normally the podcast is just a podcast audio, and it's only for the questions are only asked by my patrons, and the podcast is only for my patrons. So the switcheroo that I'm doing is twofold. One, I kept the questions being asked. The only people who could submit questions are my patrons, people in the Patreon community. But I thought by bringing it to YouTube, I might cast a wider net, and I wanted to give you guys a taste of what I do, and for people who are not members of the Patreon, and then also the video format. And the video format is so that I can use YouTube and then also show you stuff. And if you can see what's in front of me, it's insane, the amount of toys that are in front of me on my desk. And don't worry, I think I'll be able to fit them all in. You'll be able to see all of them. Most of them have to do with questions that my patrons asked. Some of them are things I wanted to show you that I got recently. I got 2 care packages from members of my Patreon. So I'm going to talk about all that stuff. But before I get there, number one, this would not be happening without my Patreon supporters. So thank you guys very much. You know who you are, and so many of you, in fact, the great majority of you have been with me on that Patreon, supporting me in my art and everything that I do for years, like literally. And I've got to meet like a good handful of you in real life, and we've become friends, like really good friends. And I'm just so thankful for that community all the time. Lately I got a new job as a substitute teacher, so time has been a little bit more slim, but I'm trying to work out the new schedule and still get used to all that. And you guys have just been there every step of the way through all different kinds of great stuff and hardships. So thank you so much. This being the first video, a visual You Like Toys podcast, I just want to really lay into that. You guys are awesome. So thank you very much. If you're watching this and you want to join the Patreon, it's super easy. It's just patreon.com/Adam Crohn. That's me, AC, ADAMCROHN. And on the Patreon, you get access to all my behind the scenes stuff, all my tutorials for the toy design and the illustration I post. That's also on there, and I'll get to that in a second. You get the podcast, which won't always be video. This is just a test. It's usually audio, but I also do the Captain's Vlog, which is a video format only for Patreon. And it's just kind of like a catch-up, touch base with you guys and let you know what's going on. And if I got any new pickups or somebody sent me some stuff or whatever, I can share that in the Captain's Vlog, and you can see it. So, but the most fun about the podcast is that my patrons, members of the community, Patreon community, get to ask me questions, and anything goes. So we get some amazing questions that range everywhere from like constructive help questions on toy design or illustration to my good friend Charlie Wrighton, who always has an apocalypse themed question, which is just great. And his one today is amazing. He always like raises the bar. And anything goes. So it can be about my personal life, about what I do, about work, about toys, drawing, whatever you want. Food, oats, speaking of oats. And this is ironic that I'm wearing this recording, because if you're a member of my Patreon or you subscribe to my YouTube channel, you know about me and oats. I'm a huge Hall & Oates fan. So anyway. All right, let's get to a couple things. First thing I think, God, there's so much stuff. It's ridiculous. I'm gonna go back and forth. So the first thing I'm gonna do is, let me look at my notes. I wrote notes that, I mentioned the drawing. So I have this channel, AC Toy Design, and then I also have AC Draw Stuff, and that's my illustration, tutorial, drawing YouTube channel. Go check it out. All these links are gonna be in the bottom in the description of this video. And over there, this is for toy design and this podcast, AC Toy Design here. Illustration, AC Draw stuff over there. But they all funnel into the same Patreon. So go check that channel out. I post illustration videos every week, at least a couple a week, because it's really easy to pop them up there. And whereas with the toy design, you know, some of these projects take way too long, as a lot of you know, which is another shout out I want to give to people, my clients, people who have commissioned me, for your patience. It's amazing. You guys are awesome, and I thank you so much. What else? I've got a little bit of a cold, so there's that, a little sniffly. I've got Predator on for the first time. It's in the background. It's almost over. I don't know what's coming on next, but I haven't seen this movie in many years, and it still holds up, and it's great. So that's on in the background. Speaking of movies, I saw, and I'll go through this pretty quick, I saw the new Ghostbusters movie finally came out to rent, and I saw it, and wow, that is not a Ghostbusters movie. Afterlife, Ghostbusters 1 fluctuates between my first and second all-time favorite movie, between Ghostbusters 1, 1984, and Breakfast Club. Those are my two favorite movies of all time. Ghostbusters 2, great movie, love it, 1989. And then the 2016 one, you know, it is what it is. If it's on, I'll watch it. It's entertaining at the very least. Chris Hemsworth is funny. You know, it's not Ghostbusters, but it's fun. Afterlife, I really liked, and I thought it was a good start to bringing the franchise to a newer audience, a younger audience. I get it, but it was, you know, Ghostbusters needs to be in New York, number one. The fact that Afterlife wasn't, whatever. But when they finally go to New York at the end, you're like, oh, this is gonna be great. But the new movie, Frozen Empire, man, I just thought it was characterless. Those characters were garbage, and the writing was garbage. I didn't laugh once. I laughed more in the 2016 one than I did in that one. I think, you know, Ghostbusters, the charm, I can't believe that they missed the mark so hard. And you guys are probably sitting there like, why is he reviewing this movie? Because that's what I do. And if you're a member of the Patreon, we talk about movies, music, the whole thing. So I'm going to touch on a bunch of stuff in this podcast episode. But what makes Ghostbusters original, and I've been wanting to get this off my chest, what makes it great and timeless is that you had the whole cast, but mostly the main four guys were excellent comedians of the time. They were grown men, not senior citizens and not kids. Nobody really likes either of those two ends of the spectrum. And they had these four great comedians of their era delivering excellent dialogue, and it was a well-written script, and it was fun, and it was funny, and nothing was in your face. Nobody cares about these kids. I don't know anybody who said, oh yeah, those kids in the new Ghostbusters, that's what's drawing me to that movie. No. I think to miss that mark is just so crazy. It should have been Paul Rudd and then three other guys. So like Patton Oswalt, maybe, since he's in there, Kumail Nanjiani, cool. And then maybe like Jack Black. Get those four guys, or Kevin Hart or somebody like that. I hate Kevin Hart, but he'd be great in Ghostbusters, I think. Get those four guys to bust ghosts. They're the new Ghostbusters. These kids, nobody wants them. Get rid of them. They're not the emo and the depressed kid thing and the romance thing. Like, no, we don't want that. It's Ghostbusters. It's not that. That's a different movie. And the seniors, the original cast, we don't need them anymore either. I love them so much, but we don't need them anymore. You know, it's great to see those guys, but if you're going to put them in as these, you know, fan service is great. I'm a fan, service me, it's great. But if you're not going to do it right, don't do it. So anyway, Ghostbusters, what a bomb. Like, that was so disappointing, and I was really excited about it. I didn't get to go to the theater because I don't go to the theater very much, but whew. Anyway, what else? All right, let's do some toy stuff before I talk about another movie. So, big thank you. I want to thank Lance Tomomoto, a member of my Patreon for years. he sent me a care package. I'm gonna repaint something for him, and in that box that he sent me for that, he sent me a handful of stuff. He always sends me really cool things in the package. Tuna jerky, not being the least of which. So Lance, thank you for that. I will definitely survive Charlie's apocalypse with your jerky. And Lance is in Hawaii, so he sends me like indigenous or food from where he lives, which is great. So anyway, also in the box was a Crystar figure, missing a thumb over here, but I can fix that. This is an awesome figure from the 80s, and my patrons know I'm a huge vintage guy. I love vintage toys, is where my heart is. And this is just a great line, and he's coming back. Marvel's doing something with him, I don't know what. And then there were also these two Superpowers figures, which I did not have, and I'm going to rehab them. I'm going to repaint them and make some capes for them. So I did not have Superman, and I did not have, and he still works, look at that. Does Robin work? He does. I got him to work the other day. There you go. Look at that. These are great. I don't have them in my collection, and I've got a few of them over there. Thank you, Lance. The other thing that was in Lance's package that I love, but I don't know what it is this guy. If anybody watching this knows what this is, put it in the comments. And by the way, put stuff in the comments. I answer all the comments all the time. But look at this guy. I don't know what it is, but it's a great little pocket figure. And I love pocket figures, my minifigures. And he's articulated, you know, his like legs move. He's got a lot of articulation, which I don't necessarily need, but this is a cool looking figure. I don't know what it is. It's very Robotech, sort of Mospetta, something like that. But all right, so that's Lance. Thank you so much, Lance. I'm gonna move these out of the way. I got a box here. Whoa, I just knocked over a bunch of things. Let's see. The other thing, go to another movie. I just watched, if you guys, I'm a horror movie fan, and I did a podcast. We'll come back at some point. Death by Podcast. It's a horror movie podcast. And so I'm always watching horror. I love horror, vintage 80s horror. And Joe Bob Briggs' Last Drive-In was on last night. So I'm recording this on Saturday night. And he had this movie called Death Spa. And shout out to my good friend and member of my Patreon, Charlie Gushy, Charlie G, who's just one of the backbones of the Patreon community. He and I almost always text during Joe Bob, back and forth, watch the movie together, and I love it. It's so much fun, Charlie. I really do enjoy doing that with you. And I know Charlie in real life. We've met in real life, and we hung out, and him and his family are great. And that's my Patreon. It's just this awesome community. So Joe Bob did Death Spa last night, which I had never seen. It was from like 1987 or 89. And it was about a gym, an 80s gym in the 80s, that was possessed by the owner's wife, who had died in a horrible accident. And I guess she possessed the gym, and it was bananas. It was a really good movie, that 80s movie that I hadn't seen, and I love those VHS vintage 80s, just cheeseball, you know, not even B horror, it's like C or D. And Joe Bob is the greatest. Between him and Sven Gulli, I'm a huge fan of both, but Joe Bob, his commentary on the movies is so great. So that was fun. Death Spa, check it out. Let me look at my notes, make sure we got that. I did this, I did that. What else do we have? Okay, Lance T, thank you. We talked about you. So I just got home. Me and Egum, by the way, you might hear him. He's over there sleeping. Mother Fluffer, my three-legged cat, is over here somewhere, and they might pop in every once in a while, just FYI. Me and Egum just got back from the lake. I live in Chicago. We walked to the lake to see the Aurora Borealis lights, I guess. We did not see them, but it was a beautiful night. We walked to the lake and back, so that was fun. If you guys saw that or are seeing it while you're, I don't know how long it goes or where, but let me know in the comments if you saw it, what it looked like. But that was a segue into something, but I don't know what it was. Anyway, there's so much stuff. I wanted to mention Charlie Wrighton, Charlie W. who's the apocalypse question asker that I referenced earlier. Oh, that's what it was. We just got back from the lake and there was a box there waiting for me, and I opened it up. Charlie had texted me earlier today that to expect a package, and Charlie's always sending me amazing packages. Another beef jerky guy. He makes his own and it's amazing. He didn't send any this time, and that's fine, but Charlie, if you ever get the chance, you know that, man, that stuff is so great. But he did send some amazing stuff, and Charlie is always like, I feel like everybody in my Patreon has a specific kind of, like, we all like the same stuff, but then we all individually have these specific tastes. Charlie's is very sci-fi, like indie sci-fi stuff. He collects a lot of like handmade designer toys, designer figures, which just means designer toys are just made by like one designer, me. So like my Chud baby that I made is a designer toy. So I'll show you some of these that were in the package. This guy is really cool. Look at that. It's like a translucent. I don't know who I know who made this, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. There's a lot of them. Same with this guy. Look at that. Look at these guys. They're just like bonkers, like super 80s. And they're actually made out of 80s parts. These are from Fisher-Price, the something Tron robot guy. His arms, it's got stormtrooper legs. The bodies, I don't recognize that body. That's probably a Star Wars body. I don't recognize the heads, but whoever made these, man, it's not Jason Plastic Geek. I don't know if he made these. Jason's another member of my Patreon and a friend. I don't know if he made these or what, but it's got his vibe to it. I don't know. I could be. Forgive me, whoever did make them. This guy. So Charlie just sends me this stuff, and I've got so many pieces and little things. But here's the big stuff that he sent me that was in the package. Oh, and this guy. An orange weirdo. That guy. But a complete Jason, this is really cool because I already have this guy, which means that I can customize this one, which there is not a Jason Takes Manhattan figure, Jason 8, which is my favorite movie of the bunch. This guy is going to be turned into that. So thank you, Charlie. That's awesome. And he's complete. He's got all his heads, even the imposter mask. The EMT guy who was wearing it. And it's got his axe and his hatchet. So awesome. Also, Spike. Look at that. This is a really cool figure. And I've been wanting to get one of these I want to paint it because it's such a cool and weird design. I want to paint it like, I don't know, some kind of 80s vibe, like as if he had like a purple light shining on him maybe or something. So that's awesome, Charlie, thank you. And then these two guys, geez, I think this one's Crimson Dynamo from Iron Man. Is that a Marvel Select figure maybe, Charlie? This guy's banana, he's huge, and look at this sculpt, it's amazing. And he comes with like all these different face plates, and like this one has like a Cyclops sort of like thing to it. And then he's got these like hands that go like down, zern. So that's awesome. Thank you, Charlie. And then the other one, I'm gonna lay him down so he doesn't fall. The last one, this is another Iron Man figure, I believe. Look at this, it's massive. I don't know which character this is though. I should know. It's like, I feel like it's on the tip of my tongue. He's not. Is he a Celestial? Maybe he's a Celestial. I feel like he's an Iron Man figure. I don't know. That guy is awesome. I don't know. I just want to like. It's awesome. I don't know what to do with him. He's crazy. And he's heavy. He's got some heft. So Charlie Wrighton, thank you so much. Member of my Patreon, good friend. Charlie and I have hung out in real life, in person, several times, and whenever we can, he comes to. Him and Charlie G. We all go to St. Charles together during Halloween. We missed last year, but it's always a good time. So thank you so much, you guys, Lance and Charlie, sending me stuff, always thinking about me, and it's flattering and amazing. You guys are just amazing. Let's see, what else? I'm gonna cross that off my list. So I think that takes us. Oh, I'll give you guys a sneak peek of something here from my AC draw stuff. This is going to be on I also have an Instagram account for it, but one of my things is to draw 80s characters or like vintage older characters from movies and cartoons and stuff with 3D glasses on. I love 3D glasses. It's super 80s. So I did the creature from the Black Lagoon with 3D glasses on, and this is a gift for somebody, and you guys are the first to see it. So there you go. That's gonna be going in the mail to someone. I think that wraps up like all the housekeeping and loose ends and stuff. We're 20 minutes in, so that's good. That's where I wanted to be. We'll probably end up at about an hour for the podcast total. Get some water. Predator just ended. I don't know what's coming on next, but we got some questions. Let's get to the questions. Let's do that. So these are, as I said, these are questions that members of my Patreon asked, because that's the only people that I will take questions from. So every week I put a post up on Patreon. That's just a call for questions, and you just load it up. Anything goes. Put them in the comments, and then for the podcast I ask them. So go ahead and answer them. So thank you to everybody who participated. You know who you are, and I will mention you as we go. So let's start. Speaking of Charlie Gushy, my good friend, he leads us off. He says, I just started a rewatch of the classic Universal Monsters films in chronological order by release. Only 2 films in so far, but it's kind of wild revisiting them after so long. Dracula is a lot less epic, but still good than I remember, with Van Helsing and Renfield outshining Dracula, in my opinion. Frankenstein, on the other hand, is just as good as I remember, with an all-around great cast of characters. So my question is, what are some movies you've revisited for the first time in a long time, and has your opinion changed of them for good or ill, or have they lived up to your memory of them? Awesome question, Charlie. So first off, I love the Universal Monsters. I love vintage horror, as I already said. But the Universal Monsters, the black and whites, you got Frankenstein, Dracula, you got Bride of Frankenstein, Wolfman, Phantom of the Opera, Creature from the Black Lagoon, and all of those have Invisible Man. All of those have sequels and spin-offs and all kinds of stuff, and they're all great, and I love them all. Some are better than others. The Mummy, The Mummy. I think out of all of them, my favorites, and I agree with you about Dracula. It's a great movie, but it definitely is a little lackluster when you think about the iconic impact it's had on pop culture. And Bela Lugosi's awesome, but I also I agree with you on that. But also I also agree with you on Frankenstein. Frankenstein is an amazing, tragic, flawless movie. I think that the story is it's so good, and Boris Karloff as Frankenstein is just, when you look at him in that movie, and then you look at him in The Mummy, and you look at him, he played it in so many different characters in so many different of those Universal Monsters movies. The Frankenstein character is just so unique, as far when you think about the actor who's in it and just in general. And I love it. I love it's so hard to see when Igor is taunting him with the fire. They realize he's afraid of fire, and they're taunting him. It's dude, just stop. But for some reason, I've always been drawn to the Bride of Frankenstein. I love her design, the hair, she's only in that movie for 6 minutes or 7 minutes at the very end. The character who plays her, who becomes her, she's in the whole movie, but the bride is only in the very end. And I love that. Even, it's just a cool, different movie for the Universal Monsters entries. So yeah, great stuff, and I would love to do that too, rewatch all those in chronological order. But to answer your question, any movies that I've rewatched recently, revisited, that I haven't in a long time, oddly, sorry, I told you I was sick, I need to... Oddly, one of my favorites, and this isn't a long time, but one of my favorite movies of all time, Lost Boys from 1987, the vampire movie. In fact, that would probably be in my third spot. I hadn't seen it. The last like 3 Halloweens have come and gone, and I always have like a list of horror movies that I want to always watch every year. And for some reason, I just haven't watched Lost Boys because I don't know why. I really don't. But it's been being replayed on a channel on like FX or something over the last week, like over and over. So I've had it on, and it's interesting when you watch it, you know, on TV with commercials. It definitely takes away from it. And so I don't want that to be my experience or my new experience with Lost Boys because I love it so much. But rewatching it again, it just felt so good. Excuse me, to see some of those characters and all that. So that's one. And Predator is on right now. I haven't seen Predator in probably 10 years. But the one that really stands out, and you and I have talked about this, Charlie, is Mannequin, the movie from, I think it was 87, with Andrew McCarthy, Kim Cattrall, and I can't remember who plays Hollywood, but he's awesome. I hadn't seen that movie I haven't seen it since I was a kid. And I always loved it as a kid. And Hollywood's glasses, the triangle with the circle, those awesome glasses, I had those as a kid. And I put it on last year at some point, and I was kind of afraid because I was like, oh man, I hope it's at least charming like I remembered it being. And it lived up to everything, every ounce. It was so good. And Kim Cattrall is just beautiful and amazing. Andrew McCarthy is awesome. Hollywood is great. It's got a nice city setting. I can't remember if it's in New York or what, but it's also got one of my favorite things of 80s movies of all time, and it's that freeze frame ending, and then the music plays, and it's Starship. That's the song. I had to go through it in my head. Starship. The song from Starship. I can't remember the name of the song, but it's one of my favorite songs. And you know, freeze frames on the two of them, the credits roll, and the song's playing, and it's just amazing. John Hughes movies do that. All John Hughes movies almost. Uncle Buck, Breakfast Club, Planes, Trains, Automobiles, freeze frame, credits roll. I love that, and it's just, if you put that in your movie, doesn't matter how bad the movie is, I'll like it. So that's one. I'm trying to think of another one that is, I'm looking around to see like my movie collection, and I don't know. Lately I've been on a TV sitcom binge. I started watching Everybody Loves Raymond. I'd never seen that before, and it's a great show that I love it now. And there's a couple others. You know, we just went through the Bad Batch, Tales of the Empire for Star Wars, X-Men '97, and what else is happening? TV. Yeah, so lately I've just been doing TV stuff, but yeah, that Mannequin was a great revisit. It was so good to see that. Oh, here's another one, or here's two that just popped in my head. Smokey and the Bandit. Grew up with that movie. You know, saw it a couple times. Remembered really enjoying it. I had an aunt and uncle who were big fans of it. I watched it today, but I had seen it maybe a month or so ago, but it was on today again, and it still holds up. Everybody is so great. Sally Field is just amazing. Burt Reynolds, charming. And I don't know the actor's name, but his partner who's driving the truck with the dog, that guy's great. He gets beat up in the movie. He's awesome. Smokey and the Bandit, and then what was the other one that popped in my head just now? I forgot it already. It was another 80s movie. I don't know. I guarantee while I'm talking throughout this podcast, it'll pop back in my head. So Charlie, thank you. Honestly, I haven't rewatched anything, and it'd be a disappointment. That hasn't happened recently anyway. So Charlie G's got another question. He says, speaking of Universal Monsters, when they inevitably start up another round of remakes, what would you like to see from them for the Universal Monsters? Personally, Charlie says, I'd like to see pulpy adventure films that are period pieces made in a similar vein to Brendan Fraser mummy movies. It is going to happen. I'm so glad that the Tom Cruise, Russell Crowe, whatever that was, flopped, because that was ridiculous. They also did one that was supposed to be tied into that, was the Luke Evans Dracula movie, which is a cool movie, but it doesn't feel like Universal Monsters. So neither did the Tom Cruise Mummy. I feel like there was another one that was supposed to fit in there, so I'm so glad those all failed. When they do it, I agree it needs to be pulpy, it needs to be fun, but not... I don't know, The Mummy is a good example, and I like the original Mummy movie, but I feel that might be... You know, the original Universal Monsters movies are not pulpy and fun, per se. They kind of went that way with, like, Abbott and Costello Meet the Wolfman and Dracula and all that stuff. And those are good movies, but if you... I also don't think they should be like the Luke Evans Dracula movie, where it's just way too serious. It was the Benicio del Toro Wolfman was supposed to be like... I know that was a long time ago, but that was like a reboot as well. So I almost feel like that movie, it's not a good movie. It has a terrible ending, that Wolfman movie. But that vibe is what they need to achieve. Actually, I think they nailed it with Werewolf by Night. Disney, Marvel, Werewolf by Night. Do that. Yeah, that was like serious, but it was fun as hell. It had a couple moments of levity, you know. But that is the formula that I'd like to see, and do them in black and white, like that movie is. That would be awesome. I don't think if you're gonna remake the Universal Monsters and do it, like a universe, a franchise, I just don't know if color works. You know, it wouldn't feel like the Universal Monsters. Do them black and white like that. That Werewolf by Night movie, or whatever you want to call it, is amazing. I love that thing. So, Charlie, thank you. I think you might come back later for a question. If you don't, no, you don't. So thank you, Charlie, for your questions. Awesome. Moving on, Charles, which is Charlie Wrighton, he says, he's got a couple in here. We've got a sneeze brewing. He says, AC, for a year, I've been planning and have finally executed my plan to purchase and move into a camper van, outfitting it with only what I absolutely need and live that van life. Charlie, I wish you luck, man. I love you, and that's something I don't think I could ever do because I have way too much stuff, and I don't know if Egan would like that, but that's awesome. Do it, man. He says, I've had to make my action figure collection very streamlined, only keeping the essentials. Something like 25 figures. So he says, what are the 10 figures that you couldn't live without and you had to take on your travels if you were in my shoes? All right, Charlie. So in front of me, I have those 10. I like to look at these 10 as, most of them are the actual 10. Excuse me. Some of them are just representatives of the toy line themselves that they belong to, because I couldn't really choose one. And I left out so many, and you know that this was hard for me because I just have so many that I love. They're all vintage. None of them are new. And I have a few honorable mentions, and I think all my honorable mentions, let me see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So one of you guys needs to be an honorable mention. Wow, that's tough. All right, we're going to do this guy. All right. I've got 4 honorable mentions, but 3 of them are G.I. Joe figures. So first off, honorable mention 1, His Tank Driver. I love this guy. I love the design. This is one of the coolest, most sleek, streamlined design figures. But the biggest reason I love him is because I remember buying him. My aunt took me to Venture. I don't know if you guys remember Venture. We definitely had it in North Carolina suburbs. I think we also had it in the Chicago suburbs. At the time I was in North Carolina. She took me there for my birthday. She said, pick out anything you want. And I picked out the His Tank Driver. Man, so good. So great memories. And people who Sorry, my throat. People who know me, I also have a Instagram channel called Mom Gave Them Away. It's all 80s toys and 80s movies and stuff. And that just jogged a memory. Going back to Charlie G's question of movies that I've rewatched recently that held up or not. Moscow on the Hudson. Phenomenal movie. I hadn't seen it in years. Since I started, my very first post of Mom Gave Them Away was about Moscow on the Hudson. And I rewatched it recently, and I rewatched it twice back to back in the same night recently because it was so good. Robin Williams plays a Russian guy who comes over, defects, comes to America. He's a saxophone player. Great movie. So anyway, back to these guys. His Tank, awesome. The other guys, the Bat, Cobra Bat. This might be one of my favorite toys of all time. Another one that the design is just flawless. But more than the design is the colorway, the color palette. The yellow and the silver and the black just work so well together. This is just such an amazing toy. And the Classified series version of this is a very cool figure. This one is better because it's vintage. It's 3 3/4 inch, and I love that scale. So awesome stuff. Oh man, and then there's this too, and then there's this. Whew. All right, this is gonna be tough. Another honorable mention. I'll go quick. Last G.I. Joe, Cobra Serpent. Was it Snow Serpent? This guy, when I was a kid, I want to eat this. I want to like kiss it. I'm gonna kiss it. I love you. This thing is so awesome. He's just such a fun figure, and he's cool, and his design and his sculpt. I love that his face mask is sort of just like blank, almost like a Michael Myers effect to it. It's so cool. So we're gonna put him there. Honorable mention, and then my last honorable mention, which I have actually a couple honorable mentions here, more, but Kenner, 1986, I think. Care Bear line, awesome. I love these as a kid. Still smells like the 80s. This is the grumpy. I chose the grumpy guy, Grumpy Bear Care Stare Man. I love this toy line. I have a few of them up on my shelf. Great toy line. Didn't make it into my top 10 though. All right, so here's top 10 in no particular order, and now that I look at it, it's like 12. But maybe I should do another honorable mention. I don't know. We'll lead it off with one of my favorite toys of all time, Sark from Tron. Excellent toy line. Amazing toy line. Needs to be dusted. Translucent red with white highlights. Give me a break. Oh, he's right there too. Look at that. That's my picture that I took, and I put it on the wall. It's so amazing. This is just an amazing figure, amazing toy line, amazing movie that still holds up. I watch it regularly. Tron from 1980, whatever that was, 81. But this figure, man, I look at it and it's just my childhood. And I've got pictures of me as a kid with this, holding it up. We didn't have the money, or my mom wouldn't buy us like vehicles, so I didn't have the light cycle. So I cut it out of the back of his card and held it up, and I used that as my light cycle. So this guy is amazing. I love it so much. So good, so good. So that's one. Where are we gonna go next? Two. Let's just get the big guys out of the way here. Skeletor. I love He-Man. You guys know I love He-Man. Skeletor, it was a real hard... I'm looking over at my guys. There's a lot of He-Man guys I could have picked. But it was between him and He-Man. As a kid, I had one of these two with me all the time. Again, the nostalgia of just holding him is so powerful. And he still smells like it. And this is a really nice... This guy's like in flawless condition. I love it. Skeletor is... I mean, what do you want? Skeletor is amazing. This is number 3. Mask, Gator, 1985. This is not my favorite Mask piece, but I remember it the most. And I respect it because it's such a simple design. When you end up taking Dusty out and you take the boat out You know, these things slide back. He's gonna get all trapped in there, whatever. So slides back, the boat comes out. This thing that you're left with is just this empty shell. It's so simple, and the boat isn't much, but it all works, and it just represents the simplicity of the 80s. Even though to design this and get it to work and all that stuff, it's not simple, but it is. I don't know, it's an oxymoron or something. But I love Mask. Mask is super 80s. I still watch it every Saturday. It's great. I think my favorite piece, I'm looking over at mine, I mean, there's like Rhino, and there's Hurricane. Yeah, it'd probably be between Rhino, Hurricane, or Firecracker. But this one was my first Mask toy. Represents the line, so that's number 3. Number 4, my very first transforming robot, Blaster from GoBots. I remember getting this from my grandmother. It was in her closet. She let me pick out she had a few things in there. She like, pick one out. I picked this guy. It was on a Christmas. I got my Christmas presents, but then this was like a bonus, I guess. And I just love this guy. He's so cool. Blaster. And the yellow, it just stands out. So cool. I love him. I remember getting it. So all of these top 10 could have been Transformers, which is weird because it's not my favorite toy line, but some of my favorite toys, definitely. Gears, my favorite Transformer. Vintage Gears. Simple, mini bot, small. He went everywhere with me. Looks nothing like he did in the cartoon, but I love how he looks. I love that faceplate. The colors of red and blue. Give me a break. That's awesome. So Gears. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right here. Oh, 5, 6. This is the Gizmo. What is that, like 4 inches, 3.5 inches from 1984. Who made this? This is LJN. LJN made this. I'm gonna talk about LJN in a minute again. I loved this guy when I was a kid. If you're sensing a theme of like, not all of my favorite toys are like military angry robots or military men. I love Gizmo. I love the movie Gremlins, and this toy was my favorite as a kid. In fact, we've got a question coming up about Sofubi. I think this would qualify as Sofubi. He's hollow, plastic, articulated, 3 points, and I don't know what the Sofubi rules are, but I know it's rotocast soft plastic, and that's what this is. This is such a great toy. And he was just he wasn't part of a line. It was just Gizmo. That's all they made for this scale, this toy line. Love it. So good. Let's see. Let's move on to this guy. So let's do another LJN. Dungeons and Dragons, Advanced Dungeons LJNs and Dungeons and Dragons from 1983. Warduke, favorite guy in the line. That toy line is one of the most inspiring, most amazing designs. The colors, the characters. The TV show is my favorite cartoon from the 80s. It's just amazing all the way around. And Warduke, I know there's a lot of Warduke fans out there, but this guy really is an amazing, amazing character design. 1983 LJN Warduke. Strongheart was tough to not pick, but Warduke won that battle. Let's see. I don't know what number we're on, but I'm going to show you this guy. Muscle, 1985 Mattel. And this guy, I don't know his name, but he's a little rock guy. Originally, I had picked the Hand, but this guy was sitting at my computer, and I forgot he was there. He's there because he's my favorite in the line. I love these things. You can hold them in your hand. They're so small. I love the trash can. You know, you put 10 of them in. 10 of them came in the trash can. I'd get these at Toys R Us all the time. I love them so much. They're just little weirdos, and they're amazing. Okay, so what does that leave us with? I don't know how many that is. I'm just gonna keep going. This is another. That's another honorable mention that I'll save. So here, I think I've only got 2 more left. Battle Beast, the bear. This guy, I love Battle Beasts. Hasbro's Battle Beasts. When I was a kid, they were great. We found out later that they exist in the Transformers universe, which is crazy. His rub sign still works. See if I can get it to work for you. I don't know. But the story with this guy specifically, before I got back into vintage toys, I was into comics and all this stuff. Sometime around 2000, I don't know, like 13, 14, somewhere in there, I had like a weird, I don't think it was a midlife crisis because I was still too young, but I had this weird like breakdown, and I was like, I wasn't collecting vintage toys at the time, and I didn't have any of mine left from when I was a kid because my mom gave them all away. But at some point I just hit this wall and I was like, I need some vintage toys. This guy was the first one that reopened the door that I bought. I don't know why. I was like, what am I gonna get? I found him on eBay and I bought him. I think because he was cheap and small and I didn't have a lot of money or room in my apartment. So I bought him. Now I have him. This was the beginning to like everything that I'm doing now, getting back into toys. So I owe this guy a lot. So I picked him. And then I think the last piece, the main guy, the main man, my favorite, my favorite hero of all time, Optimus Prime. Always does the right thing. Always thinking the right thing. Look at this guy. He represents so much of the 80s, so much of 80s toys. He's bigger than I usually gravitate towards, but he's not too big. And the design is so crazy and weird and not the cartoon, but it's perfect in every way. And Optimus Prime is such a great example for kids to have. I'm glad I had him as an example, and that's what 80s characters did. He-Man, Optimus Prime, the G.I. Joe guys. Even if it was movies like E.T. or Gizmo or Gremlins, we had positive role models to look up to. Mask. I don't think kids have that today. The last one in my list is this guy. I absolutely loved this as a kid. It's an E.T. from the PVC line of E.T. figures, tied into the movie. This specific one I carried with me to school. I carried with me to church, all over the place. I love it so much. E.T. is great. It's a great movie. And this one is just amazing. All right, so that's more than 10. That was like 11 or 12. And then I had one more honorable mention. The reason it's an honorable mention is because it's not a toy, but it is my favorite property thing from the 80s, and that's Garbage Pail Kids. I don't think they'd survive very well on an island. They get wet and soggy. I love these things to death. They're so amazing. And Berserk Kirk or Eerie Eric, he's probably my favorite. I'm not quite sure, but I love these so much. I used to go, let me get a drink. We used to go after school or on Saturdays in St. Charles, Illinois, suburb right outside of Chicago. Very John Hughes suburb, Breakfast Club, 16 Candles. Weird Science. And I was in grade school, 4th grade-ish, 3rd, 4th grade. We had a 7-Eleven right behind our house. And me and my friends would go there, or me and my brother, after school or on a Saturday, and we'd get a few packs of Garbage Pail Kids, some candy. We'd play arcade games. They had 2. They would alternate, so it was usually like Altered Beast and Rampage or something like that they'd switch out periodically. And then we'd take all the stuff that we bought, we'd go across the street to the park, we'd sit there and eat our candy and open up Garbage Pail Kids. Man, I wish I could go back. It was so great. I love these things. So anyway, Charlie Wrighton, thank you for the question, man. It was awesome to run around my apartment and collect all this stuff and be like, all right, there's my 12 and my honorable mentions. So sorry I didn't fit into the specific 10, but this was great, like thinking about why and how and all that stuff. So what else we got here? Who's next? Mark Tac Tac. And Charlie, I know you come back with your apocalypse questions, so that's good. Looking forward. Where are we at time-wise? We're running a little long, but let's do it. Mark Tac Tac. Mark Tac Tac is an awesome member of my Patreon. He lives overseas, so who knows if we'll ever get to meet, but we did do a Zoom call for my episode 100, and that was a blast talking with you, Mark, so thank you. Mark is always on point with the questions. He always puts in a handful of them. Sometimes, I think one time he put in like 17 questions. It was amazing. So anyway, he's always there, and I appreciate it. He's the most active member in my Patreon, and I love that, or at least one of them. So he says, AC, have you heard of Sofubi? I mentioned that earlier. They're Japanese art toys, sort of cross between art and action figure. A lot of vintage collectors are getting into them. I just wondered your thoughts on them. I believe they're expensive, so equivalent to like a hot toy, and I'll definitely be viewing them from afar. So yes, I do know Sofubi, Mark. I mentioned that earlier, that this guy might qualify as that, even though it's a factory mass-produced toy. Usually Sofubi is designer toy, a low print run, basically made by one or few artists on each one. They are usually like a lot of like kaijus, or like cute looking kaijus or whatever. They're hollow plastic, but they're soft, a little bit of soft, and usually have very little articulation, if any at all. Usually it's just the neck. I discovered them through Jesse DeStacio from Toy Pizza, Knights of the Slice, and Nicky Fung. Those guys were into Sofubi early on. I think they're big fans of it, and that's how I found it. That said, I'm not really a fan. Yeah, it's expensive for the most part. Not necessarily all over expensive, but they're kind of expensive. They're hard to find. You have to order them usually online or from designers. But they're big, like I'm not against them. I don't dislike them, but it's just not really my thing. But I know them. I own one actual legit Sofubi, and that's this tardigrade that is from a local Chicago guy. Can't remember his name or what he's from, and this had a name. It was like Tardos something or other. But he's got one joint here at the mid waist that turns, right? Yeah, the arms don't move. But I love this thing. First of all, tardigrades, if you don't know what they are, they're microscopic organisms that are like little bears, but they're actually really dangerous if you're that small. They're cute, whatever, but also it's a tardigrade, so that's great. But also these colors, man, look at that purpley green iridescent aurora borealis. This is what I expected to see in the sky tonight, and I didn't. Oh my gosh, no, kidding. But I love this. This is great. I wish I could remember who made it, the name of him, but he's local Chicago. You guys probably know, and you're seeing this. Look at that. The sculpt is great. It's a really cool piece. So that's my one Sofubi, and that'll, unless I got one as a gift, that would probably be my only one. I used to have a couple Knights of the Slice ones. My friend Craftsman gave me one time in a box of stuff that he sent me, and a couple things when I moved I don't lose stuff, and a couple things got lost, and I don't know what happened to that Sofubi. It was a Knights of the Slice Sofubi, and those guys are a little pricey. But yeah, I don't really own any of them. They're cool, but it's not really my thing. But anyway, cool. Thank you, Mark, for that. Mark Tac Tac has another one. He says, I recently got G.I. Joe Classified Big Boa. Great figure. Arguably my most anticipated character in the line, and maybe even my favorite character of any toy line ever. Is there one character from a toy line that you feel could essentially complete you and your collection as a grail? Big Boa is awesome. And it was really hard not to have him in this Charlie's question of the top 10. He's awesome. I loved him as a kid. He's just a great design, stark contrast between like the silver helmet, the skin color. Anytime you have skin tone mixed with like different colors, it works, which is everything, but especially in toys, it's awesome. the red and the blue and the boxing gloves. And it's just, that helmet is just amazing. That classified, I would love to get that classified. It looks so great. All these guys, especially this guy, I'll probably never get it because it came with that crowdfunded his tank, but those classifieds, this guy, the Snow Serpent, Big Boa, those all, one day when I win the lottery, I'll get those guys. They look amazing. So, your question, I don't know if they're, like, so you're saying that you were waiting for Big Boa to come out and that completes your collection in so many ways. And to that, I just say, like, I feel like there's a modern Optimus Prime that somebody could make that would fulfill me in a way that I'd be like, that's awesome. You know, I feel like it hasn't been made, and that's why I love that vintage one so much. I feel like there's I'm looking over across my Star Wars stuff, and it's really bizarre that I didn't put a Star Wars figure into Charlie's thing, and now that I'm looking, I should have. I think it would be Hoth Luke, or what else is over there? I mean, Boba Fett's my guy. I've got a Boba Fett tattoo, but that figure isn't necessarily my favorite. I mean, it's awesome, but Cloud Car Pilot, that's one. AT-AT Driver, that's one. So those guys probably could have been in my top 10. But I feel like, you know, a Black Series figure, modern toys are amazing, but they, you know, nothing against them. I love modern toys, but vintage toys is where my heart is. And I'm looking at, like, Tron, right? Tron was such a small toy line, and I feel like if they had extended it, it would be, I feel like it's missing pieces. It's missing, I think it's Yori or Yari, the female, and it's missing the guy who was the guy who played Billy the Kid in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. He's in that movie, and he plays another Tron character. So it would have been cool to get a the female Tron figure. That's one that I could see in there. LJN Dungeons and Dragons was missing a lot of characters. It would have been awesome if it would be cool. You know, Hasbro just put out the cartoon kids from the cartoon, right? Dungeons and Dragons, and I like those figures. A lot of people didn't like them. I like them. But then Super 7, right? It was NECA put out the missing 4 figures from the missing line from this line a couple of years ago, and those are great. But how cool would it be if NECA or Hasbro or Super 7, preferably NECA because they did such a good job with those 4. How cool would it be if they did the kids and Venger and Uni and Dungeon Master, all those guys, if they did those in this scale with this articulation and card backs to match, because that card art on these card backs is phenomenal. If they did a wave of those, I'd be like, damn, that's nice. But as far as one figure, one toy, one character, I can't really think of one that would be like, all right, that's it, I'm good. Because there's so many vintage toys that I had as a kid that I still don't have, that I'm missing. Yeah, so great question, but I'm kind of stumped on it as far as, I feel like there's something for Star Wars, but I know you asked that, or somebody asked that later on. Great question though, thank you, Mark. Another one from Mark Tac. He says, I was watching the recent Star Wars live stream, and I feel the Black Series really needs to expand into characters that have been in the background and not just focus on clone troopers, Luke and Leia, Darth Vader, which of course are needed for new collectors to keep them in main characters in the line. He says, I'd like to see the Wolfman, Black Sivarak, I think I said it right, in the Black Series. He had a Power of the Force figure. What characters would you like to see? Yeah, so I wrote down Tam Pazla. A lot of people don't know who Tam Pazla is. Tam Pazla is a character who was created for Rogue One, I believe, and he was also he's like in the background shot in Rogue One at some point, and then he's in background shot in Solo. And his story is that he's a bounty hunter, former like security on a prison planet, I think that's what it was, or former Empire guy. Anyway, he's got this great design. He doesn't have any toys yet. I made a custom of him. If you go back through my Instagram account or on my website, you'll find Tam Pazla. If you search Adam Crohn or AC Toy Design Tam Pazla, you'll see the figure that I made, and it's badass. It's awesome, and it's Black Series scale. So he's one that I would love to see either like 3 3/4, 5 POA in the retro. What is it called? The retro line, or a Black Series figure, or both. I think that'd be awesome. He's a great character. Look at his design; it's awesome. And then I agree with you with the Wolfman, Black Sivarak, and a few other characters from the Cantina. I think all the ones that I'd like to see that I can think of off the top of my head are from the Cantina. Specifically the little bat character who's like, he's like, refill my cup please at the bar, and he makes little squeak noises. Him, and then the spaceman who looks like a spaceman. There's so many great characters in that scene, but he would be awesome. And then there's one guy who, looking at my notes, when you watch the behind the scenes, they made one head, and it's a character at the bar, and then they flipped the head or reversed it, and it was another character. And he would be a cool Black Series figure. Why haven't they made the modal nodes into Black Series figures? You know, the band from the Cantina. What's his name? Rumpelstiltskin and the modal nodes or something. Slim Whipkins. I don't know what his name is. I forget. Why haven't they done Black Series of those? That's weird. Why haven't they done retro 5 POA figures of those? That's weird. Anyway, those are my picks. But you could pick anybody in the Cantina. He says, Mark Tac, another question. He says, on that note, do you think maybe this is an opportunity for a third-party company to make background Star Wars characters? No. I am not a fan of third-party companies, specifically the one you mentioned, which I'm not going to mention because I don't like them. But I just feel like third-party makers of toys, I don't know, I go back and forth on this, but right now I feel like they should not be doing what they're doing. And I know they're filling a hole that doesn't exist by the main companies, and shame on Hasbro. Absolutely, shame on Hasbro with the way that they have designed their line of Black Series figures, especially when they've got Marvel Legends. You know, first of all, prices need to come down all across the board, but you're buying a Marvel Legend figure, you get the figure, you get accessories, you get a Build-A-Figure piece. That's close to getting your money's worth. The Classified series, I own like 3 of them because they're so expensive, but from what I've seen, what you get a lot. You get a ton of accessories. You get a great looking figure. But then there's the Black Series, and you get like Leia in a white gown, and that's it. And you're paying $25-$30. No, thank you. So shame on them. There are so many characters that they could do Build-A-Figures with that would solve this Cantina or missing character thing. Wampa should be a Build-A-Figure. Tauntaun should be a Build-A-Figure. Half the guys in the Cantina, half the guys in Jabba's palace should all be Build-A-Figures. They should come with I know Star Wars characters don't have a lot of accessories when you compare them to like G.I. Joe, but they should come with everything that is around them in that scene, at least, so that you can build a scene. Make it worth our money, you know? That's why I don't buy them. I used to buy every Black Series figure as they came out. I don't anymore. I haven't for years. I used to hunt those things down. But yeah, I think that third party, I know third party's filling a hole that I just talked about doesn't exist on these characters, but they're also they don't have permission to do it. And I've had so much of my work oddly stolen from big companies, designs that I made, characters I've come up with. And that hurts because I worked so hard, and here I am, this little guy. I'm one person trying to make a living doing what I love. Can't pay my bills, and then here's Mattel or Hasbro. Instead of giving me a job, they take my designs. And I know that sounds like, let me get a drink, sorry. It's easy to write that off as sour grapes or whatever you want to call it, but it's the truth. And until it happens to you, you don't know what it feels like. And so a third party company doing that to another company, you know, screw the big guys who who cares? They have all the money. And some could say what I do is kind of that, but it's not. I'm not mass producing these things. They're one of a kind homages, fan art as a commission piece mostly for someone who's going to put in their private collection. So anyway, yeah, I'm not a big fan of third-party companies. I know the big ones are like Transformers third parties. I don't get into that at all. So, but there's a couple others out there who are doing the wrong thing. They should not be doing what they're doing, and one day they'll get squashed for it. So, so that's my thoughts on that without getting too far into it. Mark, thank you though for the questions, and you always have awesome questions. Yeah, Mark's awesome. Charlie Wrighton is back. Charlie, and here we go. He says, in the inevitable, a killer virus that only affects movie directors' apocalypse. Rob Zombie is the only person making films left on the planet. What are 3 movies you want made or remade by him for the right or wrong reasons? Charlie says that he wants a Sling Blade remake starring Sherry Moon Zombie as Carl. Got my biscuits, my mustard. Great movie. I don't want Rob Zombie going near it though, but that's hilarious, man. So here's the ones that I picked. I wrote them down, and I wonder how many of you have heard of these movies. I feel like Charlie, you'll probably know these because Charlie and I are about the same age. So the first one is, it's called not The Prophecy. It's just called Prophecy. It's not the Christopher Walken angel demon thing. It's about a environmental disaster in the woods somewhere that mutated a family of bears, or a mother bear and her baby bears. And there's these scientists out there gathering information. They run into these bears and madness. It's called Prophecy. It's one of those movies. It might have been a made-for-TV movie, I think, from the 80s. It's one of these movies that when I go back and watch, and I've seen it recently, the creature effects are amazing. The movie itself is a little empty, but it's got a cool cast. I can't remember who the lead is, but I remember being like, oh, that guy's cool. I just really liked movies like that when I was a kid that had a creature in it. And that's all you remember. That's all I remembered as a kid, is the creature. The movie around it didn't really exist to me. It was like, when are they going to show the monster again? So Prophecy, I think Rob Zombie should do that. The other one is another similar movie called Kindred, which was like another like cloning, splicing. They used someone's DNA and made this mutant creature and kept it in like a basement. And I just remember it like there was like a John Carpenter Thing moment where it busted out of the floor or the basement or something. It's been a long time since I've seen it, and I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna find it and watch it. But that one, that's another one, Rob Zombie. And I'm picking those two because Rob Zombie's never done like a big creature feature, you know? And I hate Rob Zombie as a director. He's a really nice guy, but I don't think he's a good director. I don't like his movies. So those would be good for him, I think. The other one is, and you said for the right or wrong reasons, I think Rob Zombie should remake the Ahsoka TV series from Disney, because I hated that. And Ahsoka is one of my favorite top 5 Star Wars characters. I love her so much. She's amazing. That was not Ahsoka. Ahsoka is not this like emo sneering, side eye, no energy, nothing good to contribute character. I don't know why Filoni did that. I don't know why Filoni did that. So give it to Rob Zombie, have him remake Ahsoka, and we'll all be good. So, Charlie, thank you for your question. As always, love it, man, love it. And our last question goes to my friend Lance Aguilar, who's a member of the Patreon and lives in my neighborhood. That's crazy. Lance and I were friends before, and he joined the Patreon after. Lance used to come to the drink and draw that my brother used to sponsor. Lance is awesome, and I actually got to see Lance last weekend at the Free Comic Book Day in Skokie at Aw Yeah Comics. My brother runs that shop, and I was there for the day helping out. I got to see Lance and all my friends there, so shout out to you guys. Some of you are in the Patreon. Lance, it was great to see you, but you snuck out of there without saying bye, and I'm gonna hold that against you until I see you again. So, because it was good to see you, as always. Anyway, Lance says, first he says, what stands out about answering questions on the YouTube channel is how it frees you up for visuals with your answers. Awesome. Lance knows what's up. And he's totally right. You know, I get to show you guys all these things that mean so much to me. Look at these guys. They mean so much to me. So yeah, thank you, Lance, for appreciating that. That's awesome. And I know everybody does. So Lance's question, he says, is, and he always has awesome, like, customizing creative questions. I appreciate that. He says, customizing animal figures. How would I even get started? Where could I find a variety of animal figures at consistent and workable scales? What should I be careful of when starting projects like this? So, Lance, this is what I have for you. I've pulled these aside. Where did my little guy go? Yeah, okay. So for the longest time, now Lance knew my girl Mooj, my puppy, before Igum. She was the love of my life. She still is. And I've wanted to make a minifigure of her. So for those of you who are new and don't know as much about what I'm doing, if you're on my YouTube channel here, you know this stuff. But these are mini Maba figures that I sculpted, my Chud Baby and my Turbo Death figure. That's white, you can't really see it. It's washed out. Let me see this. Here's another one. There he is. That's a good one. So these guys, I've been wanting to do a Mooj figure of my puppy Mooj, you know, a small sculpted one, for years, and I just haven't gotten around to it. I haven't had the time. Shame on me. But that'll happen someday. So if that's one route you could go, Lance, and you've seen me do that stuff, you know what that's about, and that is just a solid piece. Here's the actual original sculpt. That's Abe's epoxy, 2-part epoxy, which is right here. This is what I used to sculpt that, and this is probably what I would use if I did a Mooj figure, and she's a little puppy dog. So this is self-hardening. They don't sponsor me, but we have a good relationship with these guys. I do. And we do giveaways and stuff every once in a while. I love that product. It's great. And this is just a solid chunk of that I sculpted in several different sittings, until I got it to the way I wanted. But because it's self-hardening, you get a limited amount of work time before it hardens. The other route you could go for something like that is a polymer clay instead of an epoxy. And that would be something like Super Sculpey. Okay, this stuff you have to bake. I haven't used this stuff enough. I used it on my Igum, the Everyday Robot figure, which is right here, without knocking everything over. This is a gummy one that I sculpted out of. This is a resin cast. He's gummy resin cast. So this guy's awesome. This is my robot design. Igum, the Everyday Robot. I did a bunch of these for my brother for their Shadrago magazine. So I sculpted the original one of these, which is up there. I can't reach it. out of this Super Sculpey. So do it in pieces, bake each piece, get it, get it together. You could glue it together, glue the pieces together, or you could, sculpt it together. So while you're sculpting, it's a different way to work. So you could do that, and you could sculpt your dog, your animal that you're talking about. Or I brought these out. So Final Faction, there's a Final Faction like robot dog looking thing, and then this came with, I think this came with this guy. This is a little tiny one. Okay, so you can find toys like this that are like a good base to start from, and I could, in theory, I could cover this with clay and sculpt over it and turn it into something new. That's one way. Another way, and it's funny, when I saw your question, then yesterday I think, on my way back from school, I stopped at one of the free libraries, and there was this McDonald's Happy Meal. I think this is from Lady and the Tramp. That was in there. I grabbed it to show you that there are toys out there that you could, I'm gonna grab these as well. There are toys out there that you can use. Where's my other bag? Let me grab this really quick. I almost knocked everything over. That you could use as a starter. I don't know where this bag is that I'm looking for, but you could use it as a starter for whatever creature that you want to sculpt over. And then there's also this. I hope I didn't unplug myself. I hope you guys can still hear me. This is a bag of dogs and cats. Bag of dogs and cats. And I got these from Michael's. So you can buy, Michael's has those like tubes of animals and stuff, snakes and weird things. So there's all different kinds of options that you could use to get yourself started in making animal figures. And when you use something like this, these Michael's stuff. This one's a German Shepherd. Okay. When you use stuff like this, or you get stuff like this, you can manipulate this in a lot of different ways. You just have to think out of the box. So I could cut the head off, the tail, the arms and legs. I could reposition them in ways that I want, to get the what I call the skeleton anytime, whether it's an animal or a humanoid figure that I'm making, to get that skeleton to use from and to sculpt over, or to modify, or to customize. There's also stuff like this, which is like, this is like a positioning mannequin or whatever. It like moves and like it's all articulated in weird ways so that I can draw it or sculpt, so there's stuff like that. They can give you ideas. So I guess my point is, it depends on, do you want to make like an articulated toy? Do you want to make something that's static, like what I want to do with Mooj? There's also, what site is that? If you do a Google search, I can't think of the site, but there's a, like, the classified Snake Eyes figure, G.I. Joe Snake Eyes figure. There's a version of him who comes with Timber, his wolf. And it's a real nice articulated figure for a 6-inch scaled figure. There's a website that sells, I think, 3 3/4 scale, 4-inch scale stuff, weapons, accessories, stuff like that for the smaller G.I. Joe line. And one of the things you can buy is a dog. And I think there's 2 different versions. There's one that's more like a German Shepherd. There's one that's more like a pit bull. And they're articulated, and you can buy one. I think they're like $20 or something, $15, and you can customize it. So it depends on do you want to do just a static little figure? Do you want to do an articulated one? There's always a way to do it. And even if you wanted to do, you could just start from scratch and, take some tin foil, turn it into like the shape of a dog, sculpt over that with Aves epoxy or Super Sculpey, carve the details. So there's a ton of ways that you could go. And next time, shoot me a text, or next time I see you, we can talk more in depth. And your question is awesome, but I don't know what it is that you're like going for specifically. But there's all different kinds of ways that you could approach this. And I would actually start by going to Michael's and looking at what they have in their static figure section and see if anything in there helps you. But it never hurts to just grab some Super Sculpey, which you can also get there, and just start messing around with it, because it's not self-hardening. So you can have a blob of it sitting at your desk while you're working, tooling around with it, put it aside, go back to it, and get it to a point, or work with it, get some ideas, and figure out what it is you want. So also, what should I be careful of when starting projects like this, is the last part of your question. Honestly, nothing. Like, I don't think there's anything to worry about going into that. Just do it. Go into it. Do it. And just like use all different kinds of ideas. The ones I gave you, ones on your own. It always helps to draw things out. And I know you're an awesome artist, so you could start doing that. And just kind of like figure out what it is specifically you want to accomplish, and work towards that. But enjoy the process more than the outcome, always, with art. So anyway, Lance, thank you so much for your question. You guys, this was awesome. It went a little long, hour and 20 minutes or so. You guys, I'm looking for feedback, so let me know in the comments if you liked this. If you did, share it. Subscribe if you're new. Think about joining my Patreon, supporting my art, so you can see more of this stuff. And if this is something you guys like, I'll do it again. I'll do more of it. But one thing that will always be consistent is that only patrons will be able to ask questions. So that's specifically for privilege for my Patreon supporters. And all those links, that link to my shop, link to my other YouTube channel, my illustration channel, those are all below here in the description. Make sure you check that out. And I think that covers it. Right? We're good. I'm looking at everything on my desk. It's so much stuff and it's a mess, and I'm not going to clean it up until tomorrow because I have ice cream to eat. So thank you all for being here so much. Yeah, that's it. Get some oats, draw some stuff, make something, be a part of your community. We are at a point right now where it's so important in society, and I always like to end my podcast with a message like this, because I'm worried. I'm also not worried, but be a positive entry and positive person to and for someone else in your community, family, friends, whatever, a stranger. We need that. I need that. Positive. So get some oats, draw some stuff. Thank you for tuning in. If you stop by and you're new, thank you so much for being here. Everyone is welcome, and I will see you in the next video or the next podcast. Thanks, guys. All right, we'll see you later. Sit, Muji, sit. Good dog.